So in this video, we will work on loops and flow control in VBA. The topics that we will be covering is for loop, do while loop, do until, and while went. The for loop is, I think, one of the most important topic in this whole video because I would say most of the actions or the automation that you need to do in Excel can be done with the help of for loop. So first, let's start with a small code which basically goes through the for loop. Okay, so let's do developer, the Visual Basic over here. Okay, so we'll be working on sheet 1, right? So let's say for loop in Excel. Let's comment this. Okay. So for loop, right? So let's say for I is equal to 1 to 10. We will just go through this and then next, right? And then else I comma I is equal to I. Now what it does, and I'll show you. Before that, one of the most important thing is the indentation. Why? Because not because the VBA doesn't give you any kind of error, but I think Python gives the error if the indentation is not there. But VBA doesn't give you that error. But it is really important for you to do the indentation. The reason being, this is a small for loop, so it's easy to understand. You know where this for loop starts and where this for loop the next comes in. But if the loop is or the code is gets bigger and bigger, and then it's really tough for you to understand from where the code is starting and then from where is it getting exited. Those kind of things can get very complicated when the code gets bigger, right? Okay, good. So make sure you do this indentation, like the reason being, this is a for loop, and within this for loop you have to run this code, right? So this is again, I did the indentation. So you can do like you can use the tab bar, like tab bar, or you can also do like a space. So it's up to you. I mean, there is no instructions like in the Python wherein you need to use tab or you need to do 4 spaces, to run this code. But in VBA, there is nothing like that. So it's very easy to run. Right. Okay. So let's try to run this code first, and then let's see what it does. Now, this is called the breakpoint. So the breakpoint is basically you can stop the code, or I would say you can pause the code with the help of breakpoint. The short key for breakpoint, if the cursor is over here, then you can do F9, right? With the F9, you'll get the breakpoint. So it's important for you. I'll not say it is important, but if you want to debug the code, it's good that you start you have a one debugger at the starting of the code. Right now, if I say F5, this yellow color shows you that the code has started running. But right now it's not running because we have the debugger over here. So here the code has stopped or paused. Now if I say F8, with the F8 it will go step one by one, or even you can do right click and run this. But I think you cannot run this. But yeah, F8 is it. F8 runs this code line by line, and if you do F5, it will run the whole program or the whole code altogether. Right. Okay, now what this code does basically, this I is you can use any kind of variable over here. It's not necessary to use the I, but I think most of the coders or programmers use I as a starting variable, right? Then you can use J, K, and it can goes on like that. So I is any kind of variable that you want to use, and then 1 is something. From 1 to 10, we are basically trying to do a loop, the for loop, right? So it will run from 1 to 10, right? It will not start from 0. So whatever you are giving over here, it will start from there only. And the next is this is the whole code for loop, and the for loop is the next construct. Now what it does basically, first it will start from 1. The I will start from 1. The value will, right here you'll not see the value of I over here, but as soon as you run this code, you will see 1 has been assigned to variable I, and then it will run till 10. Now what we see over here, we already have a value I, right? And then cells, what it does, I'll just show you again. So it's basically I comma I. So this is a row index, cells row index, and then there is a column index. Basically what we are doing, cells 1 comma 1. So 1 comma 1 is first column, first row, right? So it will write first column I, basically 1 on the first row and first column, which is 1 over here. Now here right now, till now the value of I is equal to 1, but next, if it goes to next, and if you run the next, the value of I increases by 1, so it becomes 2 now, right? So value of I has become 2. Now sometimes people doesn't prefer to go through one by one value over here and see the value of I. So what we do for that, we use immediate window. Okay, how do you get the immediate window? This is the immediate window, Control G. Now I have an immediate window over here. Now we have an immediate window. So what we can do over here, let's print the value of I. Debug dot print value of I. I want to print this. Okay. So whenever we print this I, it will be printed over here just to check the value of I, right? Okay, great. So I don't want to run this code right now, but I want to run this code first. So I will go right click and set it as set next statement, right? And then F8. Now the value of I is 2 because we haven't reached next statement yet, right? So the value of I is 2, and we will go to next cell, next row and the next column, which is 2 comma 2. So 2 comma 2 is a next statement, or the cell on which we need to write the value. So in the same way, it will keep on increasing, or it will write the code. Will keep on writing. Now, so this whole loop is supposed to run from 1 to 10, right? So now the value is 10. So now it has written 10 as well. Right? Now what next? What next? So basically, since it was supposed to run till only 10, what it will do, I'll just debug dot print. I'll say for loop exited. These are only for the learning purpose. I would say you should not be writing these code when you are in the production. You should simply just comment this code, because it's good for the debugging part but not good for production part. Okay, good. Now it has gone above 10. So now what is the value? It's 11. So basically it should not go above 10, right? It will exit. Now it has printed till from 1 to 10 over here. Now let's take an example with the data. I think that will be much better for us. Okay. We have some data over here. So let me just take only. Now what we will be doing, we'll set a small condition, or we'll do a for loop over here, and then let's say we will color this whole row wherever we have India and US, and then if we find India and US over here, and then here we will write, let's say, the status as completed. Okay, this is what we will be doing. This, not only this, but we will also be coloring this whole row. Okay, great. So for that, what we need to do, we have to start from the row to the last row, which is a 10. But one thing here you would like to see is first row is the heading over here, and you do not want to start from the header. So what we will do, we will start from second row. Okay, so let's start this. Okay, so the data is on sheet 3. Okay, loop through data and color code, right? Okay. For first we have to create a procedure. So let's say public sub status completed. It's all up to you what name you want to give to this procedure. But one thing is, please make sure that whenever you give a name to a procedure, or right now I'm telling you it's a procedure, but we will come on to that why am I calling this as a procedure. Okay. Now, status completed. Now, what we will do, let's say I for loop for I equal to 2 to 10, right? And then let's say next is important, otherwise the value of I will not increase, which is a default. Now let's say if condition, I'm saying cells I comma 3 is equal to India, right? And cells I comma 4 is equal to US. Then many people say that Python is really easy, but more than Python, I would say VBA is much easier. Okay, and if okay, so this is the criteria, or this is a condition that we need to color code the a single row, right? And then we will change the status as well. So what does it say? It says that if the value, if the cells I3 means I is what? India 4. If I is 4 and the column is 3, so it should be India, and I is 4 and column is 4, then it will be US. And if those both conditions matches, then it will get into the inside of this if condition. Okay, so what it will do, it will stay cells I comma 1 dot resize 1 comma 8 dot interior dot color index equal to 4. Okay, so basically we are selecting the area, like if it is India and US, if it is matches, then it will select this whole area, right? This is what we are doing. We are basically selecting the whole row. There is another way of selecting it, but this is another way. Okay, and then in the second step, what we need to do, we need to change the status as well, or write the status. So let's say cells I comma 8 equal to completed, right? Okay, great. So this code, I hope you understood overall, right? So let me run this code, and again we will run it one by one so that it's easy for you to understand. Okay. Okay, so it's F5. Now let's go. I is equal to 2. And again, why we are starting from 2 and not from 1? Because first row is basically the header, so we don't want to start from the header. Okay, great. So now I is equal to 2. Now what it says, I3, I 2 comma 3 is basically UA. So we don't want to, or it will not match with UA. And then we have Ireland. So these both conditions are not matching. Even if either one of these would have matched, then also it will not get inside to this this code, right? It both needs to be matched. Okay, let's go. Now next, again, right now till now it's I is equal to 2. Now it has moved to 3. Why? Because next I, because it's increasing or incrementing I with the value of 1, which is a default one. Okay. Now again it's US and India, and again it's not matching, so it will go, or it will skip this code, or it will not go inside this code. Okay, now we have India is equal to India and US, right? So now it has gone inside this code, if since both of these conditions are matching. Now it has colored green for this whole row, right? And then I8, which is our 4 comma 8, so fourth row, 8th column, which is equal to completed. Right. Now you just have noticed that here the number have changed. I will show you why that has changed. It's a small trick to create sample data. Okay. Now let's go next. Again, the value of I increased. Now it's India, UAE, and Canada. Both are not matching. Let's go next. China and Sri Lanka. Right. So again, not matching. Now we have India and UAE not matching. Now US, India not matching, India and US matching. Okay, now here there's one more thing I would like to tell you, because I'm not able to stop myself from telling you. Sometimes what happens, there is a space over here, okay, or let's say there is a space in India cells. So it will not match. So for what, for an example, in this data, okay, let's do that. Let me show you that as well, because that's really important. Just I added a space over in India, or not here, but let me add it over which row it is right now. We are on 9th row. Okay, so here I'm adding a space over here. Now you will be surprised that this will not match, even though it's India and it's India. But here, if you notice, there is a small space after India, and because of that, the data will not match and it will not go inside this if condition. So for that, what you need to do, basically you can do trim over here and trim over here. I mean, close the trim loop. Now, if you see, now let's do one more thing over here, because I want you to learn as quick as possible. I'll just copy this whole code, copy. Let's clear this question mark, enter. Now if you see, there is no space over here. Why? Because this trim function has removed the space from left and right side of the string, right? So now if I go back and run, now it is matching. So what it has done, it has colored the whole row and then completed, right? Next, now I is 10, so it will run this as well, and then it will just go out. Now next important thing, now suppose you don't want to, or you want to skip one row, like you want to skip, like go from 2 to 4 to 6 to 8 and then 10, right? You do not want to increment the value of I with 1 but with 2, right? So because the default incremental is 1, so for that you do step 2. Right, now with this, what will happen? Let me just clear this formatting first. Now what we do, it's a step 2. What it will do, it will increase the value of I by 2. Till now it was increasing the value of I by 1, right? Now let's run this. Run, wait, the value of I is 2 right now, right? Let it go. The after next it will become 4. Now I do F5. The whole code has run and it has colored only one row. Why? Because the next row was on this one, and if it is increasing by 2, it will not basically come to this 9th row. Just try to do it yourself and then you will understand what I mean to say. But I think I made you clear, why does this happening. Now, most important one, typically this scenario, a macro recorder can do. You select this whole data and do the macro recording, and then it can do from first row or from second row to 10th row. It will tell you which all conditions are matching, and if it is matching, and then it will color code. But this is not the general scenario in VBA or in the programming world. The data can increase or data can decrease, and based on that you need to write the code. And over here, let me just clean this, and over here we have hard coded the value from 2 to 10. So in this it will learn only from second row to 10th row. That is not something very oftenly you will get. So every day if you get our data, so it's not necessary that you will get 10 rows every day, right? It could be 10, it could be 100, 50,000, 10,000 or million records. So for that, what we need to do, basically we need to find the last row of this cell, sorry, last row of this Excel or even this column, and then we have to process it, right? So let's try to understand how can we do that. So for that, let's come to sheet 4. Okay, so in the sheet 4, I will copy the same code. Okay, let's come to sheet 4. I'm not changing anything over here. Now, if I run this code, it will run till only 10th row only. It will not run for like the whole row. So for that, what we do, we have to find the last row of this Excel sheet, right? So we are on the sheet 4. Let's say last row equal to, you can give any name whichever you want. Last row is equal to cells rows dot count. I'll come back to this code, what it does, comma 1 dot row dot Excel and Excel up dot row count Excel up. Okay, so what it does basically, first it will check the total number of rows, which is like how much we have 1 million records, right? And then from there it will go at the end. So I'm technically telling you what manually the code will do, so it checks the total number of rows, and then from there you remember how do we do, control and up, right, with the help of keyboard. So that's the same thing it will do. It will do, from the end it will go Excel up and will check the number of rows over here. Right. Now we have the last row. And then now we can use this last row over here. Right. And this is it. Now let's try to run this whole code and see if it is working. I'm running this. I just wanted to show you that, I'm running this. Okay, great. See? So whichever is it's matching, it's color coding it. So now I don't think we have any more India and China combination. India and US combination. We don't have anything else. Now, yeah, in few minutes back, I was telling you why this code changes very frequently. It's because of this formula that I have created, not created, but I use. It's a random between 50 and 90. So what basically I do to create a sample data in Excel, I use this function, and what it basically takes, it takes two parameters. Takes the bottom, the maximum value, and the minimum value. So let's say 15 comma 55, and then it will give you the numbers between 50 and 55, 15 and 55, the random number. And the same I did for product 5 as well, the product price as well. Okay, now let's do one more example. The step that we used, in that what we were doing, we were basically increasing the value of I by 2, right? So same we will do over here, step 2. So why we are doing over here, we will basically try to color this whole data alternatively. So every alternative row will be colored. So let's see. Sorry, I forgot to comment this code and this code. Now, one more important point that I missed to tell you is try to use the variable over here. So basically it's increasing the value of I, right? So if you use next I, it will be easy for you to understand when the codes gets bigger and bigger. It could be like 500,000 lines of code, and it will be tough for you to understand which next or which for loop it is. So it's always good to use the I loop. Why? Because there can be multiple loops within a loop, right? So for that, it's always good to utilize this one. Okay. Now let's try to run this code again. Let me just color it out in this. Okay, great. Now let me run. So now it has colored alternative rows. Now what we will do, one of the most important logic, which you can get stuck if you are a new developer, especially if you're working with VBA for the first time, which is deleting the data from the Excel. And many new developers, what they do, they just start from 2 to the last row, and then they do not understand why almost the whole data gets deleted, wherein it should not be the case. It should, like for an example, I just do not want the data with the empty status. I want to delete them. So generally, if I'm a new developer, or if I'm starting with the VBA as a new developer, I will just start from 2 to last row, and then I will just delete it. I'll show you that code. And then it happens that everything gets deleted, and it should not be like that. So it's the opposite way. I'll show you how. Let's say delete those with empty status. Okay. Now let's say public sub delete. Okay, great. Now for to delete the data, okay, let's try to understand it logically. If you start deleting from here, right? You found the empty cell. What you did, you deleted it. But now the complication is the last row has changed, right? Now last row is not something which was earlier in the code told you. Last row has changed. Now it will be tough for the code to understand what is the last row unless you don't go back to the this first code and understand. Okay, let me show you an example first. Let's say for I is equal to 1 last. I'm just writing it and then I will write the code. Last row, next I. When I'm saying rows, I dot delete. So this is the correct code. Now what I'm saying, I need the last row of this Excel. Okay. Now if I run this code, it will be a tricky situation. Why? I'll show you. Now let's see. F8, what is the last row? 20 is our last row. Now we are running from I1 or let's say I2. I2 to last row. Okay. What it did, it deleted it. Now, technically the value of I will increase to 2 or 3 now. So value of I is 3. Will again delete it. Again it will go delete it. Delete, 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 delete. Now what has happened over here, if you have seen, I did not do any logic over here to skip these rows, right? I didn't say to skip these rows and just delete alternate rows. I just asked it to delete the rows whichever is coming from I2 to last row, but it skipped all these rows. Why? Because for it the last row is getting changed every time, right? Or I would say not even the last row, but the next row which is supposed to delete, it's getting changed. That is a scenario. So for that, what we need to do, let me just undo this. Let me just run this and then copy the data. Now for me need to delete what we say all these records. For that, what I need to do, I need to do it in the other way. First it will be last row, from last row to 2. In this way we'll delete the whole records. But now technically it is expecting for I to increase every time because we are saying next I, right? So generally it will increase by 1, but it is saying that it should decrease because last row is, suppose in this scenario the last row is 19, but here the last row, the the end row, it should be 2, but technically it should be like increasing, right? So for that, similar to what we did earlier, like step 2, here we will say step minus 1. Now let's run this code again. Wait, what it did, it starts from 19 and it deleted one row. So which row it is deleting now? It's deleting from this, from bottom. It's not deleting from here. So if it is like from bottom, it can check the criteria, and if it is not, then it can skip upwards, right? So that is how it should be. Let's go again and see. Now the last row is what? Last row is 18, right? The value of I is 18, and then now I delete. Look over here. Okay, let me color this code so that you understand which data is getting deleted. Color code this. Okay, F8, delete, 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 delete. This is how you delete the data from the Excel, and not from from top to bottom, but it should be bottom to top. Now, sometimes what happens, let's say, let me bring the data again. Important for you. Now, let's say Sometimes now here we have status like completed in the 3 rows, but you do not want to delete all these 3 rows, whichever like having a completed status. I'm just giving an example or scenario. You just want whichever status is completed and it's coming for the first time, it only delete that and leave rest of the records. But what we have done till now, whichever the status is coming as completed, we are deleting it, right? So we have to find a way so that it only deletes the first matching records and leave rest of the records. So let's do that. Okay, we are on the sheet 4. Let's say delete. Okay, so this scenario is called exit for loop when matched. Okay, public sub delete matched. Okay, okay, great. So let's say last row. Let me just copy this. I don't want to write this whole code again. Just the last row. Copy paste. Okay, so for I is equal to 2 to last row, right? And then next I. Now, what I want to do is if cells I comma 8 is equal to completed, then okay, I'll tell you the mistake that I did, but yeah, let's do that. And if, and then I'm not deleting it, okay? I'm clearing the cell. Let's not delete it. Okay, so if it is completed, then let's change cells dot cells I8 is equal to blank. Okay, and then I'm saying exit. Now I will explain what we did here. The query starts from the last, from I is equal to 2 to last row. The last row is basically the last row of this cell or the sheet, sorry. Now what we are checking if the cell's value is completed, then it will go inside and clear that cell's value. That's it. And now whenever it gets for the first time, it will exit the for loop. What it will do, it will just exit the for loop and it will come over here. Okay, let's run this. Let me just debugger over here. F5. Last row is my 28. Not matching. It will go. It's not matching. Again, the value of I is equal to 4. Now it will go inside. So it will clear this completed, right? And now exit 4. Basically, it got the status completed for the first time. Now I'm saying as soon as it matches for the first time, it just exit the for loop. It will directly go outside this whole for loop and it will go directly to the end sub, and then the running of the whole query stops over here itself. This is really good because this kind of scenario comes very frequently, almost like in all the code that you will be working, or in all the scenarios that will be working. This scenario will come for sure. So make sure that you understand what this exit for does. Now let's do a bit more complicated code. So what we will be doing now, let me first write it down. Let's color the alternative rows and columns. So what I mean to say is alternative rows and columns. So if it colors like this, then it should be colored like this, like this. So yeah. So for that, what we say, loop through each rows and columns, and then add checkerboard formatting. Okay, let's start this. So let's first, since we need to loop through each rows and columns, let's first get the, so now what we say, let's loop through each rows and columns. So we have the code for the last row. Let's take that. Last column. We need 1 comma rows count dot end XL, it will go to the left dot column. Now for I equal to Now what we will be doing, we are looping for each cell and column. So it will go like this. So first it will go like this, but again it will go like this. So basically it will go like this, and then next row, and then next row. Okay. Last row, 2, 2, next I. Now you can see why do we need to write I over here, because it might get very complicated in the future. If I mod 2 is equal to 1, then, and if start column is equal to 1, else start call is equal to 2, right? And then what we are saying, for j equal to start call to last call next j, right? And then what I'm saying, cells I comma j dot year dot color index equal to 4. Okay. Okay, so what it does basically, let me just run it and show you, and then maybe you can understand it. Hmm. Okay, so somewhere over here it's incorrect. Cells 1, okay, first row, columns dot count dot end, the left, the F8. So we have last column as 8 and then last row as 28. Now let's start this. Okay, my mistake. Let's go back. Step. Okay. Now I is equal to from 2 to last row. So what it is, I mod 2 is basically it's trying to divide I by 2, right? And if it is 1, so it means it is divisible by 2, and if it is not, then it is not divisible by 2. Basically, we are checking if it's odd or even. Okay, start column. So we are starting from column 2. Okay, next. So basically, let's start it again. Again, it went back and it's checking whether this I is equal to 3, right? This row, whether this row is even or odd, right? So again, even or odd, the reminder is 1, so it's odd. Just run it though. Okay, great. So this is how you can do a checkered import checkboard.